Hello, it's Tristan here from ZebraInvest, and today I'm going through the do's and don'ts of joint ventures. So if you're anything like me, you will be using joint ventures to help accelerate your property investment journey. I've worked with quite a few people in the past, from doing my first ever flip on a 1 to 2 bedroom flat over in Southampton. You can find my videos back in the past when I was doing those, to even latest ones where we've done new build development and built one at High-Low Road, where you can see that as well. I've done quite a few joint ventures along the way to try and work with other people who can bring their expertise to help my journey go a lot quicker. And you might be thinking of doing the same. But you might be thinking, hey, I'm thinking of starting a joint venture with someone new that I haven't met before. Start working with a friend or somebody who went at a networking event and figured, look, we're heading in the same direction, let's do some deals together. Or perhaps you're on the other side of it. You found an investment partner who's got a great deal, they need someone to work with, but you want to make sure that you've got this all ticked off. So just to point out at the start, I am not legally qualified, but this is from my own best knowledge, and hopefully if there's one little tidbit along the way, it's going to help you with your property investment journey. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to cover a few main bits. So one of the bits is just know, like, trust. And if anyone's heard that, it is a BNI saying, but it's something I stick by. Your responsibilities, how are you going to set those out and what they're going to look like. Due diligence on both each other, making sure that you are working with the right person that you want to work with in the future. How you might get your legal set up and what that's going to look like to make sure that if there are any problems down the line, you can get them fixed. Whether you work with an accountant and bookkeeper from the very beginning to make sure that your life is as simple as possible. And when it comes down to splitting any funds or any profits down the line, it's all settled, squared up and in the books. So you're not having to try and fix it later. And also thinking about a timeline. So what I'm going to do is I'll kick it off and just show you a little bit about me. So for those who don't know, ZebraInvest is a property investment company. And I originally started doing joint ventures with people because we're buying properties that were empty to develop them and sell them on. I've always tried to do it to have a positive impact and work with other people. But the whole idea of working with joint venture partners means that I can do a little bit more and work with other people. So one of the bits that I try to do is make sure that people know, like, and trust me as a business. And with that, I have quite a large presence on my website. It demonstrates all the stuff that you can see in the background, magazines, articles, and stuff that I've done in the past. So then it helps when someone else wants to come work with you, they can see and they know that you are someone that's credible to work with. One of the things I've done before with that is actually put a whole set of leaflets together, that actually a whole book, a pack, an investment pack together. That means that people can then work, see what's in your booklet, and then actually sit there and say, okay, well, we can see projects he's done before, stuff that he's worked with, he's got credibility that we can then kind of see what's happened before. So usually what I try and do is go out, have a coffee, have a drink, meet them. You would probably met them at a networking event, and you're going to want to keep in contact quite a few times to make sure you build up that rapport over time. And once you build that rapport, then hopefully you're at a point that you think, yes, I can do a joint venture, I can work with this person, because who knows how long this relationship is going to last between you. Hopefully all's plain sailing and all works out quite well. So at the very beginning, the next bit you want to do is make sure you set down whose responsibilities are for doing what. With my joint ventures, I tend to turn and say to people that, look, in all honesty, I'm looking for an investment. And at the end of it, we're going to split the profits 50-50. But what I'd like you to do is you basically fund the deal, and then I will make sure that I keep on top of getting find the property, get the legals across the line, get it refurbished, and get the property sold. The main elements of getting the deal done. But if you are going to be working with someone, you might have someone who wants to be a bit more active than that. And if they want to be a bit more active, you need to work out who's going to be doing what. So, for example, with myself and a few business partners, we've got a business together. You can find out a company's house if you want. But what we had set up was that I would be responsible for the purchase, the finance, and getting any planning permission sorted to get that property and transaction across the line. The next one, my friend, he would be responsible for project management, refurbishment, and delivering it. And that was really essential because actually he can do that at a much better cost than I can. And in doing so and working together, we're able to deliver a really high-end product at a really great price. And finally, we had someone who was going to help with the interior design. They were going to bring in their flair, design, finish, work through the whole building whilst working within our costs. And this means that we could deliver top-end products and maximise our refurbishment. But that's obviously during the transaction. But what we hadn't thought about is what happens once it comes to the end of it. Who manages it? Who looks after it? Who's the responsibility? Is anyone going to charge for that? How that's going to work? So if you're going to write down who does what, how it breaks down at the very beginning, then that makes it obvious. And it could be that you have someone project managing, but you need to kind of make sure that they realize that you doing your work on one side of it to get the transaction and everything to align is one element, and they might want to do the other. And you've got some people again who are like fantastic at numbers, and they might be the best, being the devil in the detail, but just write down and work out what it is. And with it, I fit in just to mention the timeline, and I'll come back to that at the very end. But you need to make sure as well, if you write this down, even if you don't get it legally signed, but I would 100% say you should, if you've got a document that you've written, at the worst case scenario, at least you've got an idea that you're trying to start on the right tracks. But the main bit is if your heads of time is written down, which basically says whose the responsibilities, what we're doing, what we intend to do, what the projects are, how many projects you might like to do. And then that's going to be ideal because you can then hand that over to a solicitor for your legal framework later. But the next thing is you've got to think about your due diligence. So you've met this person, you've met me, or you've seen me online, you've seen this over 130 videos of me now, but you've seen me online and you think, yeah, it seems like a good guy, he's got a decent track record. But you might want to actually reach out to and speak with other people that they've worked with before. So it could be if it's someone brand new or someone who's just getting started like yourself, that actually even just trying to talk to other people, other character references, someone else they might know, just to kind of turn and say, yeah, you know, Jimmy over there, he's a fantastic bloke. Yes, I would work with him. And just get some recommendations. And especially, for example, if you've got projects that you've worked on before, that you can actually offer out references that someone can go talk to, and then they're going to be willing to work with you again in future. And one of the bits as well is a good idea is to make sure you find out what someone else's credit record's like. How are they with money? How have they looked after money in the past? It could be that they're trying to work with someone else because they don't necessarily have the best credit rating. But then if you're going to do that, then make sure that, you know, you've got all the EDs set up correctly so that the responsibility might more sit with the person who's got better credit record and can keep track of the project and make sure everything stays online. Also have a look, you can see other companies that they're related to. So for example, if you look at Companies House, you see I've got a group structure, but you can turn around and see other projects I've done, other people I've worked with, and then you might say, okay, well, how did that one go? Or how's that gone in the past? And it gives you a good idea and credibility of how the companies and everything are working. So the next bit is the legal setup. So previously I've worked both with Foster's solicitors in Norwich and I've worked with Leith's prior in Norwich to get these set up. It's easy enough if you want to go set up a joint venture on Companies House. You can go do that, simply put in your shareholders' names and details, and poof, you've got a limited company. But you've got a limited company with no document, no detail how anything can happen or unravel if it were to go wrong. So for just about maybe £2,500, you can get this all drawn up. They can use perhaps a template set times they used before and tailor it to you. But in doing so, you're going to be able to have stuff in place that happens that if it falls apart, how does it work? How do we split things up? How do we get, say, a property valued? If they want to leave the company, how do we get them bought out? It's all little things that you're going to think about, but they will think about it for you. And actually, it might seem like a lot of money now, but in future, imagine it all falling apart and you've got to sit down there and you've got to go through independent mediation, you've got to go through accountants, you've got to spend all that time and money, which actually, if you spend it up front, it can save you a lot down at the line. So, and I just mentioned the word mediation, and with that, the idea is if something does go wrong, you can have it written into your shareholders agreement how things will unfold, how they'll get fixed. And by doing this, you're going to avoid a lot of cost and a lot of headache if it goes wrong. But as I said, and I'll say it again, make sure you write things down so you can give them to a solicitor and you can demonstrate what you've been trying to do. And if you are going along through a project and you're working together and one of you turns and said, look, I've spent a lot more time on this than I expect, you know, do you mind if I get paid something for this? Write down exactly what you're going to pay them for, because otherwise if you start getting repetitive invoices, payments that have gone to that person, it could look like a salary. And as a joint venture, it's not a salary, you're a director and you're just working for your own business. And I mentioned at the beginning, one of the things to cover is accountancy. So from the very off, you want to make sure you're starting on a good footing. So personally, I have my bank accounts with Lloyd's, and then they're linked up to my Xero account. My Xero account is linked into something called HubDoc. And the idea being that any invoice, any receipt, anything that comes in goes straight in, and then we can match up with all the expense that has been going out of the bank. So you know all of that expense is legitimate expense. And then if you've got a good bookkeeper who can work through it and make sure and stay on top of that, that's ideal. And then they could also help you aid profit, loss, how things are going on each project, and we've got a good idea on it. And make sure you get an even better accountant. There are property specialists out there who all they do all day long is property accounting. But I use a chap in Southampton called Pandy & Co. And Pandy & Co have been absolutely fantastic, and they're really good with my accounts. They've kept on top of it. They're not the cheapest, but they definitely keep it really nice and clean and make it easy to understand. But make sure you keep it all straight up and all together, because at the end of the day, if anything does go wrong, or you want to split, or you want to sell, or anything else in future, it's all really easy and clear to see in those books. And when you do set up your bank accounts, have a think. Who wants access to that account? If it's both of you, okay, do we want to have a limit on how much someone can transfer? Do you want to have a limit on how much goes into that account? Who's holding cards? How many of cards have got? Do you have checkbooks? What checks can be paid out for? And if cash is going in, just think about when the cash is going in, when it's going out, and also if you need to check in and have a look at those accounts as well. And one of the bits I mentioned earlier on was timeline. So joint ventures could be a lifetime. Think about it, if you buy a property and you go and rent it out, you get a mortgage on it, and mortgages now can be 35 years. At my age, that's going to put me into 70 by the time I finish with my mortgage. And blooming heck, that is a lifetime. That is almost like getting a mortgage or spending your lifetime in jail. I wouldn't necessarily want that. So if you have a conversation with a joint venture partner, think about it. So, for example, one of the ones I've done, we basically said, look, we'll take out, once we've refinanced, we'll take out 5 years mortgages, and at the end of 5 years, we'll have a sit down and a think. Will we keep going for another 5 years and work this together and run again, or will we cut ties? But if you write that in, you know what you're doing. And you've also got to think what your goal is. Is your goal to build a portfolio? Is your goal to be flipping stuff and each pulling out cash to each of your companies? And just think about it. When are you going to review this? Because you need to sit back down with that person and still make sure, as I said, do you still know, like, and trust them? Are you willing to keep going with them? So, hey, there you go. Hopefully that's given you a really good idea of what you should do, and hopefully a little bit of what you shouldn't be doing to make sure you get your joint ventures right. Hopefully you've liked this video. If you do, please tick the button, subscribe to my channel, and ask any questions underneath. As I said, I'm not legally qualified, but this is my best knowledge, and hopefully it helps you. Cheers.